What does success mean to you? And let's get more specific. What is success? What could success look like for you this year? All right, what is up, Dream Think Doers? Oh, man, I'm so excited to be back, baby. That's right. We've taken a couple of weeks off, actually about 3 weeks off, and I've used that time to recharge, to rest, to recalibrate. We got away, took a little introvert's vacation over the holidays, and went to a little family cabin that we have access to out in South Dakota. It's away from everything. It's actually not too far from Mount Rushmore. If you've ever been to that area, it's absolutely beautiful, truly God's country. But this cabin is great, very low tech, no Wi-Fi. Cell phone coverage is terrible. Like you have to go into town to send an email, to use social media, all that stuff. So it's truly an introvert's paradise, but it also helps you. You don't have to be as disciplined to like unplug, because it pretty much unplugs for you, which is just a gift. And my wife, Melissa, and I got to go out. Our son, Alex, who lives in LA, was out with us for a while. And oh my gosh, it was just awesome. Just time away. Big fireplace in this place, and you got to keep it rolling. So, got to chop some wood. We just got to chill out and hike and explore and nap, and it was just awesome. But good thing is, I actually missed you. You know what I mean? I actually missed doing the podcast. Having time away is really, really good. And I always say that when you can have some downtime, that downtime can be really revealing. Because there might be things in your world when you get away, whether for you it's the mountains or the beaches or amusement parks, whatever you do to get away, to escape. It's always good to pay attention to what are you actually looking forward to getting back to, right? The escape is good. The rest, fantastic, absolutely needed. But it's always good to just inventory a little bit of, what do you want to get back to, right? And this was one of those things that I wanted to get back to. So I am excited to be at the mic, especially because we are kicking off the year with Reset Week. My hope as you listen to this episode, you got some coffee or your beverage of choice, and you can enjoy this conversation together, whether you're listening to this on your commute, whether you're in the gym with me, whether you're mowing the lawn, Steve in Florida, Kathy up in Canada, wherever you are. I hope you are enjoying your year already and that you've been looking forward to Reset Week. Now, Reset Week is something that we started a few years ago now. I should look back. I think we started it in 2022, where we just, I don't know about you, but it was that year where I realized New Year's resolutions are for crap. I know everybody talks about that, but New Year's resolutions just generally don't work for most people. And what's interesting is that, part of my day job, as you may know, is being a success coach. I work with wildly successful executives and entrepreneurs and founders, and setting goals is a big part of what we do, and building plans to achieve those things and blowing those things out of the water often. That's absolutely a part of what I do day to day. So you would think that New Year's resolutions would be a setup for success. Like if you've got something like your calendar that kind of lends itself to a specific task or experience, you would think, tipping over into the new year would be the ultimate setup for goal setting, right? You would think that that would be the perfect time to get clear on what you want for the coming year. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to experience? What do you want to get done? But as you probably heard, the statistics on the effectiveness of setting New Year's resolutions is abysmal, like terrible. I think the latest stat that I looked at on this front was that New Year's resolutions tend to last 24 to 48 hours if they're, that's on the good side, but most don't. And I think because of that, fewer and fewer people are doing it. People try, but they're just not effective. And There's a number of reasons for that. You know, New Year's, tipping into the new year, seems like it would be the perfect time. But a few years ago, we just realized like that is a terrible time to try to do the important things of setting goals and setting intentions and getting clear and getting focused on what you want to do, because usually that time of year is also when your schedule's out of whack, your diet's out of whack, your sleep schedule's out of whack. So we just decided to declare the third full week of January of any new year to be reset week, to say, hey, this is the best week, right? The dust has settled from the holidays. You've probably kind of gotten back into a regular schedule, and now's the time to intentionally reset. And what's beautiful about Dream Think Doers, you listeners are the best listeners on the planet. You're all about being intentional. And it's not about being perfect, but it is about setting intention and saying, all right, let's do this better. And I can tell you, Reset Week is about that. It's about giving yourself permission to reset and to recalibrate, to refocus, right? And not to do it and honestly, not to do things that everybody else is doing. It's to not just follow the trends. It's to set your direction. It's to set your intention, to say, hey, this is what I want this year. And that's what I want for you. And here's a little secret about Reset Week is it's great to listen that third week in January. And I really do encourage you to do that. But I hear from people all the time that have listened to Reset Weeks in the past that have said, hey, I listened to this in June. I listened to this in August. I listened to this in March. And it was exactly what I needed. So I will say my prayer is literally whenever we hit publish on an episode that people find it when they need it. So just know that literally we've been praying for you. And we've been praying that you would find this episode right when you needed it. So I welcome you to Reset Week, whether it is, in fact, the third week of this year or whether it's some other time of year. Welcome to your Reset Week, my friend. Now, I mentioned it in the intro that we did create a journal just for this episode. I'd love for you to download it. It's got some extra tools, some extra questions, and it gives you the ability to just follow along as we go, but also think about some of the things we're talking about and to go deeper. You can get access to that for absolutely free. You can go to mitchmatthews.com/compass reset. Compass reset. And we did that because compass is going to be our core metaphor as we move forward. So mitchmatthews.com/compass reset. We're not even going to ask you for your email. You just get it for free, and I just want you to have it. All right? How about that? So go there, grab it, and then follow along as we go. All right? So I'm going to be taking a look at my notes. By the way, my assistant, Austin, designed the journal, and it looks awesome. So at the very least, go check it out and then shoot Austin a thank you. Right? But here's the thing. This reset week, every reset week we've done it, we want to give you a toolbox, a set of tools to guide you as you're resetting, as you're recalibrating, as you're getting ready, re-energizing for this coming year. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the acronym, because as a speaker, as a content creator, we have a written code. You have to have an acronym. But this year, my acronym is RESET. RESET. And I'll walk you through exactly what each one of those letters means. It's a step in the process. But I can tell you, I want to give you a little backstory on this. This year, I got a lot of great gifts. But this year, I got a compass for my son, Alex. And I got to say, again, I got a lot of great gifts, but this one, my favorite. Probably going to be my favorite for a while. It's just a great, great gift. And it's actually it's not only a good looking compass. If you're participating in this episode on YouTube, you can see it. I'm holding it up to the camera, but it actually is a working compass. So that is absolutely fun. And there's some engravings on it. I won't go into depth on it, but I will say one of the engravings references one of our shared favorite movies, which is A Knight's Tale. I don't know if you remember the movie. It was with Heath Ledger. It was kind of his breakout movie. I don't even know what year it was, but it's a fantastic story of a young man changing his stars and becoming a knight. And there's some fun stuff in it. They did a lot of fun things with that storyline. There's some great comedy. There's some great heart. There's some great action. So I highly encourage you to check it out. But one of the things that Alex had inscribed is a line from that movie, and it's a line that gets me going because it's part of the story with Heath Ledger's character and the guy that plays his dad. And basically, Heath Ledger's character takes a journey. It's a long journey. And then he follows his dad's advice to get him home. And part of the inscription on this compass is that. And I joke with Alex, and he jokes back with me that every freaking time I see that movie, I get teary-eyed and, lose myself a little bit in this particular scene that this inscription is in reference to. Means a ton to me. But it's all about direction and finding your way exactly to where you want it to go. And I love that he gave me this compass because it's a great metaphor and tie-in to that scene, that favorite shared scene. But it's also a great way to look at life because a compass, what's interesting with a compass is a compass can give you direction. But what's interesting about a compass is a compass really only works if you know where you are and you know where you're wanting to go, right? Like just having a direction is not all that helpful, right? But when you put it in combination with knowing where you are and knowing where you want to go, a compass is a big part of what helps you get there, right? And so I love the gift. I love the metaphor. And I thought, man, as we move into Reset Week, I was just going to lean heavily on this compass idea to help us get exactly where we want to go. Okay. So if you've already downloaded the journal, hopefully you have. Again, you can go to mitchmatthews.com/compass reset. Okay. What you will see there is a number of pages, about 11 pages. But basically, it's going to be broken into 5 parts based on our acronym of RESET. Okay? RESET. And the whole idea with this is just like we have, a great compass, but what we need to do is we need to acclimate. Anytime you're going to start to map out where you want to go and you got your compass to help guide you, first thing is you need to figure out where the heck you are, right? Right now, today. And to do that without judgment. Okay? So if you've downloaded the journal, I think I've given it enough hits by now. If you've downloaded the journal, and we'll put it in the show notes as well so you can grab it later if you're at the gym or you're driving or whatever. Part 1, R in our acronym, starts for reflect. It stands for reflect. That's right. Because again, if you want to go someplace new, if you want to achieve something bigger or better, if you want to do something this year, in some ways we have to start by identifying actually where we are, right? And so with each of these parts of our reset, we're going to get you some journal prompts, asking some questions to help you to get clear where you are, where you want to go. And so we're going to start right with that, with the R, and to reflect and to think a little bit about this past year. I know we're resetting this year, but it's good to say, all right, let's think about these past 12 months, right? And to ask yourself, hey, what's been some life-giving experiences, tasks, duties, roles? What have been some things that have made you feel more alive? What are some relationships that have helped you to feel more you? Now, I know it would be so easy to just blast past this, to hear that question, you probably, I mean, you're smart, you're a dream think doer, so you're intelligent. You get that everything we share has, it's based in neuroscience, based in psychology, all of those things, also often based in scripture and wisdom, timeless wisdom. But it would be easy to hear that journaling question and go, oh, I'll do that someday, right? I'll do that when I have some time. But even right now, just even if you gave yourself a minute and I ask you that question, what's something from this past 12 months that made you feel alive? What are some things that you did day to day that brought a smile to your face? Not because they were easy necessarily, but maybe they were a challenge, but it felt right. Felt like it was in your zone of genius. It may have been difficult, but it still flowed for you. What were some of those things? And like I said before, what are some of those relationships? What are some of those friendships? What are some of those, who are some of those family members even that make you feel alive? Maybe you just have an hour-long coffee with them, but you walk away with a smile on your face. You walk away energized. You walk away with hope. You walk away excited. Write some of those moments, write some of those tasks, write some of those people's names down. All right? Now, here's the thing. I think it's important to also say, hey, when we're looking at those things, what are some of those things that drained you? What are some of those things that felt out of sync? Right? What are some of those things that drained your energy? What are some of those people where you walked away and maybe you only spent a half hour with them? Boy, you needed a cup of coffee or a serious Red Bull when you were done to bring you back. Right? It's good to actually mine some of that. Now, here's the thing. I don't want to spend a bunch of time, as some of my friends say, navel gazing, right? Just looking at our own belly button. But it really is important to reflect. Say, okay, what are some of those things? What are some of those tasks? What are some of those roles that brought me to a sense of feeling fully alive, to feel fully myself? What are some of those relationships that help me to do that, to help me to feel restored, confident, strong, courageous? What are some of those relationships that made me feel drained, worn out, tired, fearful, scared? I'm guessing even as I ask those questions, even if you're driving or running on the treadmill or, again, mowing your lawn, my guess is some names, some tasks are flashing into your mind. When you have a second, take a second, journal those out. But even if you're just getting some of those flashes, take inventory of those. Now, there's more questions in the journal, but one of my favorite questions, the last question in this section is, what did last year teach you? What was something that the last 12 months taught you about what matters most? What's something that this past 12 months have taught you about what matters most? Not perfectly, not poetically. Don't worry. Nobody's going to read your journal and put it on the front page of a newspaper. But is it anybody reads newspapers anymore? But you know what I mean, right? But what's that thing? What are some things that you learned? I know for us, we've learned a lot. We've had a great year in our business. In fact, last year was our most profitable year. I think it was in some ways one of my most enjoyable years of our business. But we also learned a lot and navigated a lot. Our older son is serving with the National Guard in the Middle East, and he's about midway through that deployment. Had to learn a lot about letting go, about supporting, about connecting when we can. Had to learn a lot about when things are completely outside your control. How do you still have peace? How do you have joy? Not easy, but it matters, right? So that's some reflecting. Boy, we could spend more time in there because, that it's important. But when we're talking about resetting, the reflection is a little bit of what's allowing us to take our compass to get oriented to where we are and where we're wanting to go. So that's the R. That's part one. Part two is the E of reset. which is experience. Experience. And I got to say, the word experience falls completely into my success secrets toolbox. Okay. Because like I mentioned before, I'm a coach. I'm a success coach, working with leaders and executives, entrepreneurs. Now I'm doing a ton of work with other coaches and speakers as well, helping them to figure out what their goals are, to build plans that work, right? Systems, rhythms that allow them to achieve those goals, to surpass those goals. But what's interesting about the E word here, the experience word is, and this kind of falls into that secret success category, is what's interesting is oftentimes when we set a goal, what we're actually doing is we're saying, hey, I want to experience this thing, and I think achieving this goal will help me to do that, right? It might be a sense of accomplishment. I want to run a marathon so I can feel that sense of accomplishment. I want to get healthier. I want to lose some weight because I want to feel healthier, right? I want that promotion because I want to feel more recognized or maybe more sound financially, whatever it might be. So the goals that we set, what's interesting is the actual outcome that we're hoping for is an experience, right? Whether it's the sense of accomplishment or health or peace or joy or security or acknowledgement, it's actually the experience that we're hoping for. So I'm not saying that the goals aren't important, but what's interesting about that is if we're setting the goal to have the experience, what if we could actually have some of that experience along the way? Because I don't know about you, but a lot of the successful people that I work with, I fall into this category too. Sometimes I get so focused on the goal, and I kind of tell myself I'll have the experience once I've achieved that goal. I forget to have the experience as we go along, right? So, as an example, you might choose to say, hey, I've set a goal of losing some weight. I'm going to eat healthier in order to do that. And on the other side of it, boy, once I shed this 25 pounds, I think I'll really feel healthy. And that's great. And so we set our goal. We set our eyes on losing that 25 pounds. We eat or try to eat healthy along the way. But what's interesting is oftentimes we get so goal focused, we forget about the experience. And to be able to say, hey, okay, we may not have hit our goal yet, but shedding those 2 pounds this week or a pound this week and eating healthy, I'm actually feeling healthier this week. So you don't want to miss out on the experience, or to be able to say, hey, I'm building my business. I'm trying these things in order to accomplish or to hit that goal, to take ourselves to that next level. Don't forget to feel some accomplishment along the way, right? It's really interesting. We really don't need more goals. Oftentimes, what we need is something that helps us to feel more alive, to be fully present. Because what's interesting for me, when I first started to understand kind of the secret of success, I will say there's a part of my brain that's like, wait, if I can start to experience it along the way, will I lose fire for the goal? Because it's kind of that whole thing of scarcity says, if I only allow myself to really feel that once I am on the other side of that task or that to-do list being checked off, what oftentimes is, once I get that thing done, then I move right on to that next task or that next goal, and I almost forget to have the experience even after I've done the big thing. But boy, if I allow myself to have some of that experience along the way, that actually keeps me fired up. That keeps me focused. That keeps me motivated, right? So let me ask you, what's something you want to experience more this year? Maybe it's adventure. Maybe it's peace. Maybe it's joy. Maybe it's accomplishment. Think about it. What words come to mind of the actual experiences that you want to have this year? Right? I know for me, in this past year, I wanted to experience more peace. If you're a longtime Dream Think Doer, you know that I am a recovering worrier. right? I've had trouble with worry in my past. So one of my goals for this past year has been I want to experience more peace. And so I started to set up some daily rituals, some things that would help me to do that. And in some ways, I kind of started out the year thinking, well, if I do 30 days of this morning ritual, then I'll really feel more peace. Now, it's one of those things where that kind of belief can make sense. It oftentimes, depending on what research you look at, it's either 27 to 30. Some people say 47 days to make a habit. So in some ways, that's good, right? But I realized, wait, I don't need to wait for this intended experience. I can actually take inventory of the experience as I go. So to have a morning ritual of spending some time in the Word. And one of the other things for me, I spend time in the Word. Oftentimes I'm digging deep into some of the Hebrew or the Greek, just because what's interesting about this ritual is I wanted to spend time in the Word. But the question that I ask myself is, what's something I want to see this time, or what's something I can see this time that maybe I've never seen before? It's just a good question, because some of the scripture that I was spending time in, it's something I've read before, I've thought about before, I've talked about before, maybe I've even taught on before. But my go-to question this past year has been, what's something I want to see differently this time? How might I look at it differently this time? And boy, it just really engages my brain. So I got weird and started, diving into the Greek and the Hebrew. I've been doing some of that, but boy, I really got into that, and it's been fun. One of the other things that I've done is that I usually will take my dog, Hero, for a long walk in the mornings. That's a thing. But this past year, I got more intentional about doing it in silence. I was still, true confessions, pop in my AirPods, so I had earphones, but that's just so that I looked like I was engaged with something else. And that just gave me carte blanche to walk anywhere, and nobody was expecting to have conversations with me and all of those things. But I just gave myself permission to walk in silence instead of listening to a podcast or instead of listening to music. I still listen to plenty of podcasts, still listen to plenty of books, still listen to plenty of music. But during that time, I just give myself 30 minutes of quiet. And sometimes it was listening to the birds. Sometimes it was listening to the creek, maybe that we were walking by. Sometimes it was, walking in the leaves. But just giving myself a ritual of a little bit of silence. And boy, so powerful. And after doing it for 30 days, yeah, I did. I could feel a difference. But the big thing is I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing out on the experience as I went. So what are some of those experiences that you want to have this year? Maybe it's joy. Maybe it's time with friends, right? You might decide, hey, I really want to feel more joy through relationships, right? So that's great. Awesome. It might be impact. You might want to, have more impact this year. Maybe it's with your team or at your church or in your community or with your family or extended family. Maybe it's satisfaction. I know that might sound strange for some, but, so often a lot of what we're trying to do is to actually feel satisfied, right? Feel satisfied in our career, feel satisfied in our relationships, feel satisfied in our financial situation, right? It might sound like big and esoteric, but a sense of satisfaction, that might be an experience you want to have more of this year. And it's good to inventory that without judgment, right? Don't worry about what anybody else has on their list. What are some things that you want to experience more this year? And then you'll see in the journal, just asks along with that, what are some daily or weekly rhythms that might invite those feelings in more often, right? It's really interesting when you get intentional with the kind of experiences you want to have, and then you start to get intentional with the kinds of rhythms or tasks or habits that you could incorporate to actually achieve or experience those things more often. It's amazing how often those are actually more healthy, right? And it leads to a richer, more satisfying life. So we're going to start with reflection. then move to experiences and inventory some of those experiences. And then part 3 is our S, which is set some intentional outcomes. Set some intentional outcomes. Now, I know we don't have any control over most of the outcomes in our life, but to be able to set some goals, to be able to say, hey, it's actually not about the goals at all. I think people often, and this is one of the big reasons why New Year's resolutions don't tend to work for most people, is you'll see people write down pages and pages of them, dozens of goals. But that's not the intention here. To be able to say, hey, what are 1, 2, maybe 3 kind of high leverage outcomes that will help you to move that needle this year? What are some outcomes that you'd love to have in your life over this next year? Some good questions to ask is, what would meaningful progress look like for me this year? What would meaningful progress look like? What would some 1, 2, or 3 outcomes that could have a positive ripple in other areas of my life? Maybe an outcome in your career might have a positive ripple in some of the other aspects of your life, or an outcome in a relationship could have more of a positive ripple, right, in your life. I know for me, as an example, setting a goal of maybe it's time with family, right? To be able to say, hey, I want to have more time with family, but it's more quality time with family. When I'm going to be with family, I'm going to be fully present. It's not going to be diffused. I'm not going to be thinking about other things. I'm not going to be tempted to be on my phone all the time, all those things, but it might be more time with your family, quality time. Or maybe you might think of a big project. Maybe there's one particular project that could really lend itself to having a bigger impact in your career or within your job, and to be able to say, God, I'd really love to work on that. I really love to get that done. I'll give you an example. This past year, we launched a new online training program. And this year, we're actually launching a new online training program that teaches people how to build online training programs, right? So I built multiple online training programs in the past. Many of them went down in flames early on, to be perfectly honest, but many of them have gone on to be 7-figure products. And I'm wildly blessed to say that. And this one this year, super exciting. We're learning how to do this and learning really how to teach it, all those things. So it's really exciting. But I know for me, this is one more thing that gets me, it's one outcome that will have a ripple in my life as we get more and more of these online programs established that allow us to bring more value, touch more lives, also be able to bring in revenue while I'm sleeping and doing other things, right? That has a positive ripple in our life. So there's certain outcomes, there are certain goals that will have a multiplier effect. So what are some of those outcomes that you'd love to see in your life, right? It's interesting. I have a coaching client who's in our Authority Bridge program. That's where I work with high-level leaders, CEOs, executives, entrepreneurs who are wanting to add coaching and speaking to their life. They want to be a coach. They want to be a speaker, but they don't want to blow up their whole lives. I've got one of the folks that's in that Authority Bridge. An outcome they wanted to have was they wanted to teach more. They wanted to have more impact. Now, they're an executive within a branding firm, okay? And they're doing great work and they're very successful at what they do. But part of the outcome is to have more impact. They were like, I just want to have more impact. And so one of the things they started to do was they started to teach, doing a specific strategy that we teach on offering just a core concept, something they're learning from their own journey. And they're doing that once a week on social media. It's not something they have to be on social media all the time for, but it's just a task and they're teaching from their journey. Now, what's beautiful about this is that outcome was they just wanted to have more impact. Now, some of their goals, very tangible, very numbers oriented, very specific, but this one was, hey, I want to have more impact. That was their outcome. The rhythm they established was doing these posts the way we teach them. And what's really interesting is that, and that's kind of the beauty of these outcomes, is you don't know exactly where they'll take you, but oftentimes when you're intentional, they have a positive outcome, even that might surprise you. In fact, this particular executive, her organization let her know that they've been watching these posts, right? And she hasn't declared herself as a speaker or a coach yet. She's just doing this and just wanting to have more impact. And her organization just recently let her know, hey, our CEO is thinking about retiring, and we're just seeing you in a whole new light with your leadership. Would you consider going for that position when it's open? Talk about a surprising outcome for her. But the one outcome that she was shooting for had a ripple effect, even within her own organization. And so she's loving it. Who knows where that will play out? But that's just an example of one outcome that could have a ripple effect in other areas. But what are some outcomes that you might want to have this year? Another way to ask this would be, what could success look like or feel like for you this year? How do you want to define success this year? That's a big question, I know. But boy, defining success in your way, right? Dream, think, doer. One of the reasons you listen to this show is you want to dream bigger, think better, and do more of what you were put on the planet to do, right? You don't have to define success the way that everybody else defines success. You certainly don't have to define success the way that I define success. But what are some of those things? What are some of those markers? What does success mean to you? And let's get more specific. What is success? What could success look like for you this year? Write it down. See where it takes you, right? Okay, so that's part 3. Part 4, you may or may not see this one coming, but this one is so wildly important. It's our second E of the day. Part 4 is the E. Are you ready for it? Is to eliminate with purpose. To eliminate with purpose. Because here's what's interesting, and we've talked about this in other Dream, Think, Do episodes. But oftentimes, if we're wanting to do more of a specific thing, if we're wanting to experience more of a specific thing, oftentimes it's not about doing more. More often than not, it actually involves eliminating something from your calendar, kicking something off your to-do list, getting yourself free of something you've either done out of habit or obligation that just helps you, whether it's opening up more time, opening more, thought and mind space, whatever it might be, or just being able to get you a sense of that freedom. So let me ask this. Journal prompt number 1. What are some of my obligations, roles, or expectations, big or small, that feel heavy or outdated? Right? There could be some things that are on your calendar that are there. You took them on in a season where it was needed. You took them on in a season where it was right. But is there anything right now that you're doing that you don't need to do anymore? It's interesting. I do an exercise like this with a lot of the executives that I work with, and I didn't even know, it's always good to do this every quarter. But with one particular executive that I was working with, I just say, hey, let's do some elimination. If I ask you this question, what are some things, whether it's obligations, roles, expectations, duties, that you're currently doing that are outdated? Something you said yes to at a time where it was appropriate, but it's no longer appropriate. Now, I didn't know. I asked that question. It's good to ask yourself that question. It's good to ask others that question. But with this particular executive, she got real quiet. We were on Zoom, so I could see it. And she just thought and thought. And she's like, you know what? I took on a specific task when one of my key team members had a real personal issue. I think it was they lost a family member. And she's like, I picked that up because it was the right thing to do. But she said, I've been doing that task for the last 2 years. And, my team member's back. My team member's healthy. She's like, honestly, I did it and kept doing it kind of out of habit. And then she's like, if I'm being perfectly honest, I've kept doing it because I didn't want to have a hard conversation of, hey, it's time to give you this task back. And what's funny is, it's like, I just asked the one question, but boy, this was just this, kind of flood of thought that this executive had. And I said, well, what do you think of that next step is? And she's like, well, I need to have the hard conversation. And what's great is 2 weeks later, we were able to follow up, and she goes, I thought it was going to be a hard conversation. She's like, but what was interesting is when she brought it to the team member, they're like, well, I didn't know how to bring it up with you. She said, this team member was just kind of like, I thought you were enjoying it. I didn't want to take that away from you, and I didn't know how to bring it up. So it's funny. They were both trying to avoid a hard conversation, but once they stepped into it, it was actually a very easy conversation. So how about you? Is there anything you're doing that you might have said yes to because it was the right thing? Or let's just be honest. Maybe there's some other things where you said yes to it, or you started to do it out of guilt or out of obligation or out of expectation. And maybe it's just not in alignment anymore. Maybe it's not for you, especially this year. What would it take to say no? What would it take to eliminate that off your schedule? It might be a hard conversation, but the conversation might be easier than you might think. And I always say, sometimes, I know it might sound trite, but oftentimes I'll say, if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, whether it's out of obligation or guilt or habit or expectation, that might mean that somebody that's supposed to be doing it isn't. So it might seem selfish to get it off of your plate. But I say, you know what? It might be just as selfish, if not more selfish, to keep doing it, because somebody that's meant to do that task, maybe that's totally in somebody's zone of genius. Maybe somebody's just totally waiting to step into that thing. You're making it so they can't, right? So what is it? What's something you want to get off your plate? What's something you could get off your plate? What's something you should get off your plate? Not to should on you, right? Now, this could be tasks, but I'll be honest with you, this can also be mindsets. It can be beliefs, right? I do an inventory of this a couple times a year. Quarterly's good. If I'm being honest, I really do a deep dive on this twice a year. What do I need to get rid of? Whether it's tasks, things on my to-do list, whatever it might be. Sometimes it's mindsets, right? And one of my mindsets from this past year has been playing small. Now, just be real with you, right? This wasn't a thing where I wake up in the morning and go, today, as I'm stretching out and having my coffee, I'm not saying today I'm going to play small, right? But there are times where I'd be tempted to play small, right? Whether it's because I didn't want to shine, I didn't want to seem like I was trying to outdo anybody else. Sometimes it was also because I didn't necessarily want to risk being not liked or having something not go well, right? So I play small. I play it safe. And I realized, especially in this past year, you know what? You got to take some risks on this. And so each morning I said, hey, part of my prayer was, Lord, help me to be all that you've created me to be. And if I need to be bigger in any area, give me the grace to do so. And I can tell you that one for me, we talk about this all the time with Dream Think Do. Prayer might not be your thing, but I know for me, that prayer was a game changer. I want to be all that you've created me to be. And if I'm playing small in any area, help me to play big, right? Give me the grace to do so. The humility and the confidence and boldness to do so, right? I love that. I had another coaching client that had stepped into a volunteer role a few years ago because it was the right thing to do for his organization, for his family. His family was involved with this particular organization. But as we did his elimination exercises, we realized that, dynamics had changed. The organization had kind of changed its focus. His family was doing other things. They weren't as engaged with this nonprofit anymore. And so he's like, you know what? It just doesn't feel in alignment. And I said, okay, well, what do you need to do? And he goes, it's kind of that same thing. He's like, I probably need to have the hard conversation of stepping down, stepping out of this role. It was a volunteer role. He wasn't getting paid for it, but he was bringing value. And he's like, I want to give them 60 days. He's like, it's a hard conversation, but I want to do it right. And what's interesting was, yes, they might have felt a little disappointed, but what was interesting is they were like, okay, well, thank you for the 60 days. And they found someone almost immediately who had been longing to be in this role. And with those 60 days, this person was really able to, my coaching client was able to really walk alongside the new person. And they were great. They were fired up. They were excited. They actually had more spare time than my coaching client had to devote towards this role. So it really wound up being a blessing for my coaching client. It wound up being a blessing for the organization and for the person that stepped into the role. So what's something you need to eliminate? What's something you need to cut out of your list? Write down 1 to 2 to 3 things that you want to release this year. My guess is, as I've been talking about this, something has come to mind, right? And if that's it, what if you just took the step today of writing it down, even if you don't have a way to get out of that role or to drop that or get it off your plate, just write it down, whether it's in the journal or in your notes or whatever it might be, to say, all right, and give yourself 30 days to say, what are some ways that I could gradually or respectfully or intentionally step away or step out of this role or this obligation, this task, right? So that's part 4. Now, part 5, not going to surprise you. We're going to bring this thing home, especially since it's dream, think, do, and we're all about doing, right? There's a lot of people that get stuck in dreaming and thinking. I'm a big fan of both dreaming and thinking, but you got to take action. And that is part 5. Part 5 is take one bold step. That's what the T is. Take one bold step. Key thought here, clarity without action is just a nice idea. But this bold step doesn't have to be big, just brave. Okay? The final section is all about turning momentum into movement, right? To actually move forward. So, what's one thing, big or small, that you want to take action on immediately, like within the next 24 hours? Doesn't have to be monumental. You don't need to quit your job and move to the other side of the world, all of that. But to be able to say, what's one small thing? Maybe it's inviting that person out for coffee, right? To learn more about what it is they do or who they are, to help to figure out what your next step might be. Maybe it's signing up for that class or that event that you want to be a part of. It's just been a little scary to finally pull the trigger. What's that thing for you? Maybe it's reaching out for help. Maybe it's taking that bold action of buying the thing, right? I'll tell you a quick story. I wasn't planning on telling this quick story, but I'll tell you this quick story. When I was first starting out, as a coach and a speaker. And if you've been listening to Dream, Think, Do for a while, you know my story that I had been in the pharmaceutical industry. When I started out in the industry, had been a good fit, had a lot of success with it, salesperson, moved into training, helped to run a $2 billion pharmaceutical company's training department, all these things. It was great run. And then I got promoted into a bad fit job. And it was brutal. It was painful. It was heart-wrenching at the time. But I will say that it also woke me up to the dreams and the season that I was supposed to move into. So I'm wildly grateful for it. And I continued on in that job. I continued to deliver at that job. But I started to build my coaching and speaking business on the side as I did that. Because that bad fit job woke up some dreams that had been buried. And I'm so grateful for it. But I said, one of the things, you got to take action. And it may be an easy thing. It may be a small thing. But I can tell you one of the things that I did, it was basically in the beginning of 2002, is I was still working that bad fit job, but I signed on and had a website company build me a website. And basically right around January 1st or the first part of the year, I paid them $10,000 to build a website. Now, keep in mind, this is 2001, 2002. We didn't really know what the website or web was yet, right? The World Wide Web was a great mystery. There was no Facebook. There was no Twitter. There was definitely no Instagram. Nobody knew what they were doing. And I put $10,000 down on this website. Now, you could argue that was a colossal mistake because I didn't know what I was doing. But I can tell you that what's interesting about that, and I look back on that, and again, you could probably label that as misguided or making an investment I shouldn't have made. But I can tell you that $10,000, what's interesting about it is it did produce a nice website for the time. I didn't really know what I was doing, and so the copy didn't really make sense. It looked really good. But I can tell you that $10,000, it wound up being one of the things that helped me commit. I do think, like, sometimes I wonder if would have been wooed back into pharmaceuticals had I not made that $10,000 investment. You could even say had I not made that $10,000 mistake, because then all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I'm at least going to sell enough coaching and speaking to pay for this freaking website, right? And so you could label it a mistake, but it was an action. It was absolutely an action. And that action created momentum. And I started to move forward, right? I committed. And what's interesting about that is that in a relatively short amount of time, I thought it was probably going to be 5 years before I was up and running as a coach and a speaker full time. But within about 5 months of that investment, of that mistake, of that decision, whatever you want to call it, I had more than paid for it, really replaced my income, and was able to do coaching and speaking full time. So you might want to label it a mistake, and you certainly could. But I know for me, that mistake helped me to commit, which turned into momentum, which changed everything. So I throw that story out. It's funny because I have notes that I was going to tell a different story, but I felt like that's the story I was supposed to tell. Who knows what it makes you think of me? But I just want to say there might be a decision. There might be that action step that you need to take, and it doesn't have to be a $10,000 mistake or a $10,000 investment. But what if that next step, even though when you take it, it might even feel like a mistake early on. What if that's the thing that helps you create momentum, that then creates the life change that you want, the life change that you need? I mean, one of the things we talk about all the time with pursuing dreams, achieving dreams, getting things done is there's always a messy middle. It's never perfect. You don't know all the steps, but you do need to start. And so as we think through resetting, to reflect, right, to think about the experiences you want to have, to set some intentions for the year, to eliminate some of those things that need to be eliminated, and then to take action. Sure as heck, some of those things might feel like a mistake initially, but I can tell you what, you are going to learn, you are going to move forward, you're going to have that momentum. And my friend, even though you may not do it perfectly, even though it may not be pretty as you do it, oh my gosh, you do those kinds of things, this is going to be a year to remember. And that's what I want for you. I want this to be your best year yet, because you're having more and more of the experiences that you want to have, that you're defining success and achieving it in the way that you want to, in the way that you need to. That's what we want for you. Okay? I'll tell you what, I'm so excited for this year. We've got so many great episodes coming your way. I've already got so many great interviews, and I've got a bunch of deep dives planned for you as well. So just get excited for this year. I'm so excited to walk this out with you. By the way, I will make a note in the journal. Hopefully you downloaded it. And again, there's a bunch more questions. We didn't cover all the questions, some suggestions on next steps, all of those things. But I did make note of a couple things. In the back end, there is a note about our Authority Bridge program, which is something that we officially launched this past year in 2025, and it has been amazing. It's a specific coaching program for executives, for leaders, for entrepreneurs who are wanting to add coaching or speaking to the side of what they do. They don't want to blow up their life, but they do want to have more impact. They'd love to make more income, all of those things, and have more satisfaction as well. And the Authority Bridge helps people to do that. And if that sounds like something that is of interest to you, we put links in the journal, but you can just go to mitchmatthews.com/authoritybridge or just authoritybridge.com and find out more about the program. And I would really encourage you to do so. It's an incredible program that I'm super excited about, but the results that we're seeing have been blowing people away. But more importantly, we're seeing people come alive. They're getting to do more of what they were put on the planet to do, and that's what I want for all of you. So go check that out. You can find out more at authoritybridge.com. All right, my friend, it is time to reset. Whether you're listening to this in January or any other month, what if you gave yourself permission to reset, right? To define, to get clear. What are some of those things you want to get rid of? What are some of those experiences you want to have more of? What's success look like for you this year? What if you gave yourself permission to just spend 5 to 15 minutes just exploring those questions and set some real intentions for this coming 12 months? Because as you do, oh my gosh, it's going to be amazing what happens. And I can't wait to hear from you as you do it. So keep me in the loop. Let me know. Tag me. I love hearing from you guys every time. I love it. Let's celebrate together. Let's live this out. Let's truly dream, think, do it this year. To dream bigger, think better, and do more of what you're put on the planet to do. Let's do it, my friend. All right, let's go.